Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Mr. Saucedo's YouTube videos. Today we are going over lesson 6, which is how do you make and interpret non-Mendelian Punnett squares. So we've talked about genetic disorders. Those Punnett squares were exactly the same. These ones, though, are different. So these are non-Mendelian. Like, remember how we were talking earlier about how complicated different genetic traits are? Like for eye color and hair color and things like that in humans, and how we pretend that Mendelian genetics is just a binary so that we can like make things easy for us. These are the exceptions. So there are 4 different types of exceptions, but we're really only going to be talking about 3 of them that we're going to be drawing Punnett squares for. So here is the first of the 4 major exceptions to Mendel's genetics. Incomplete dominance. So some traits are neither dominant nor recessive. So instead, the offspring blend the different alleles together and make a hybrid. And so a good example of that are in flowers, snapdragons and carnations. So if you have a red snapdragon and a white snapdragon, when they combine their alleles together and have children, they actually mix and make pink snapdragons. And so you can think of incomplete dominance as being kind of a blending of the two. Red and white makes pink. So here would be kind of the breakdown in a Punnett square. Like 25% of your children would be red, 25% of the children would be white, 50% of the children would be pink. Okay. A good example for humans is hair texture. So if you have curly hair and the other parent has straight hair, when you combine them together, you kind of get a mix where it's wavy. Now, similar to this, it could be 25% chance your child has curly hair, 25% chance your child has straight hair, and then a 50% chance your child has wavy hair. It just depends on the alleles that both parents possess. So let's draw a Punnett square for incomplete dominance. This is the way that we write alleles for incomplete dominance. So we only use capital letters because remember, it's incomplete dominance. There's no such thing as recessive or dominant. Instead, we use these superscripts to distinguish between them. So notice, same letter, but instead, we're distinguishing between them using these superscripts. So let's pretend capital letter C is color, like the color of the flower. B stands for blue, R stands for red. So let's say one parent has a blue allele and a red allele. The other parent has a red allele and a red allele. We still do everything the exact same way. We separate them out, and we're going to cross ourselves. So we fill in this column, we fill in this column, we fill in this row, we fill in this row. All right, now we have to actually interpret it, which makes it different. So we now have these different possibilities. We could have 2 blue alleles, a blue and a red and a red. What percent of the children have 2 blue alleles? 0%. What percent of the children have blue and red? 50%, these two. What percent have 2 red? 50%. What percent would have blue flowers? Well, in order to have blue flowers, you'd have to have 2 copies of a blue allele. What percent have purple flowers? Remember, we are blending together the traits. So this is not going to be blue and red. It's going to be what happens when blue and red mix, which is making a purple color. So these 2 children would be purple. These 2 children would be red because they just have red alleles. So that's what makes incomplete dominance different from simple Punnett squares. Okay, let's take a look. Next one, codominance. That's where both alleles are dominant. So instead of mixing things, you end up with both traits at the same time. So in other words, the previous one was like a nice blending of the two. Codominance is having two traits at the same exact time. A good example of that are called roans. This is a Red Bull, not the drink. This is a white cow. You put them together, though, and you get a white cow with these red spots all over it. Those are called roans, R-O-A-N. So a good human example of that are freckles and moles. So red and white, white with red spots. Those are called a rowan. So this is not how pandas are made, but I thought it was cute. The human example, though, to go with that is if you have a parent with a lot of freckles and you have a parent with few freckles, the freckle trait does not kind of like blend. Like you don't end up with like these kind of like big patches of freckles. Instead, you're going to have a kid that has freckles. It just might not have as many freckles as the parent that had freckles did, right? So like they're both displaying. So they're displaying the traits simultaneously instead. So here's a good example. So let's say again we have like a hypothetical plant that has white and red. Another hypothetical plant that has white and red. Notice again, we're talking about color. That's why it's C. And then the superscript is telling us what color, like white or red or whatever. So we're going to separate them out, and we're going to still fill them in the exact same way. It's just the interpretation that's different. Okay. So this is what that would look like. So how do you explain the genotype then? Well, we just say homozygous and then the color. So how many of them are going to be homozygous red? Well, there's one parent here that has two copies. So we don't say dominant because there's no such thing as dominance. It's codominance, right? They're both dominant. So saying dominant makes no sense. These two children have a mix of both, so that's 50%. And this one has white. So let's pretend, not plants, sorry, we're talking about fur color. So we're talking about the cows in this situation. So what percent of children would just have red fur? Well, that would be this child. White with red spots, these two children. So now notice I added spots. So add some red spots to your boxes here. And then what percent would just be white? It would be this one. So notice we're showing both red and white at the same time. So it could be spots, it could be stripes, it could be, some way of showing both traits simultaneously. All right, let's see if we can predict. What do we think here? White camellia, red camellia, this is our child. What do we think? Is this showing incomplete or codominance? Codominance, they're both red and white at the same time. So we have yellow and red, the child is orange. What do we think? Incomplete is a mixing, right? A black chicken and a white rooster have the following offspring. Codominance, right? We have white feathers and we have red feathers at the same time. Albino parent, and then we have a black parent, we have a gray child. Incomplete, right? It's mixing both fur colors together. Black horse and white horse, codominance. All right, that is the end. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Make sure you fill in your notes as you were going through that.